Just, that's Friday.
So,
We can be good.
expect.
Is there a presentation for the other two items, the bike shop and the,
They're not huge
Traffic
items. They're, yeah,
yeah.
the main act is the top.
Can we take 10 seconds, just, there are people at the table that don't know each other?
Oh, yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah, so just going maybe clockwise around.
Murray Steele's on the mayor.
Jeremy Hill. Gary Fields.
Dan Morton, I'm the planner.
Betty Morton.
Vince Knudsen.
Staff Short, the committee clerk.
Mike Lightbody, chairing today.
And if I can ask, who are the architects that are appointees?
Appointees?
Yeah, from AIBC nominees.
Oh, no, I'm not registered.
Oh,
No.
are there any architects here?
Technically an intern for the last 20 years.
Yeah. Same boat.
It's a lot. It's an ongoing dialogue with the AIBC.
Because this is a development permit, right? And it's a design panel, so.
Yes.
Don't you need an architect for this? No?
No, so the design panel is a advisory board.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
gotcha, sorry. And I guess James is coming in for this too, right? Is it? For this?
Glenn's here, and
James Crowley.
Oh,
James will, so this is Glenn Carpenter, he's the proponent.
Is, then I'll just throw it all out there. Is the architect required for this one or no? Because this is a development permit, right?
Mhm.
And an architect should represent himself at a design panel, right?
We typically haven't done that. I mean, yeah. This is the design panel, I mean, yeah.
I know it's
Generally.
it's an amendment,
Yeah.
but and I'm a member at large. I'm an architect. Sorry, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I'm a member at large,
Mhm.
so I'm not a nominee from AIBC. But I don't know if it's legal. So.
Oh, no.
We're not.
This
It's
is,
just comments.
this is an advisory committee
Yeah.
to council.
Yes.
The development permit is a responsibility of council that has been delegated to the planning staff,
To the CEO.
Understood.
or to the CAO, and the CAO typically takes what the staff says. So we have development permits for all manner of things.
Yes, understood.
Right.
Yeah.
So the criteria for a development permit, we're gonna go off.
Yeah, no, I think this is important. Gary's
This is-
brought this-
Sorry, I don't
This-
want
it's-
to drill down on my first.
No, but
But,
it's,
It's a good dialogue.
it's an important issue.
It is, yeah.
Because,
It is.
the
An
intent-
advisory design panel, sorry to interrupt, but that is an official meeting for a registered architect, and the registered architect is required to attend an advisory design panel. They can't send another person to be their delegate.
Well, we can, it's our process,
I understand, yes,
right? And the
yes.
intent of the design panel, so maybe we have named ourselves incorrectly by some other criteria, right? I mean, but we're talking kind of semantics here. Because this design panel, as I say, is an advisory panel to council.
Yes, as they all are.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
In every
So
municipality.
we decide who represents who and what they represent here,
But
there's
not in
a,
terms of the profession.
well, no,
should
I
say.
know, but if you were building a doghouse and you didn't have an architect,
That's fine.
we could
Yes.
still call you in.
That's fine,
Right.
but
So-
a project which requires a registered architect must be represented by the registered architect.
The
An
registered or a proxy?
Or someone from the office who is a registered architect,
Mhm.
yes.
Yes, and those are AIBC rules, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's like architectural standards.
and they pertain to whether or not you have a registered architect on your design panel. That applies to the registered architect who makes the DP application,
Mhm.
regardless.
Mhm.
But the mandate of this committee is to ascertain whether or not a submission is congruent with the design
Totally
Guidelines,
understood.
which
The
are-
guidelines, yeah.
So in actual fact then, the decision process actually happens at the council.
Yeah, it has
So
nothing to
the
do with
member
us.
is at
Understood,
council.
understood,
It
but
should
a
be okay.
representation of an architect's project must be made by an architect.
Uh-huh.
Can't be made by the owner or other person non-registered.
Okay, so that's what the architects say, but
Yes.
not what we say.
But that's what all municipalities adhere to as an advisory.
I don't believe so,
Okay, okay.
because we don't.
Anyways, I don't know. That's
You know what I mean?
fine.
I mean, basically, to
Yeah,
put it-
that's
to put
fine.
it
And if
simply.
I were the nominee, architect nominee on the panel, I would make you aware of that, and I wouldn't continue with the panel. I would withdraw from the panel.
Right.
But I'm a member at large, so I
Yeah,
don't
right.
have that.
We don't have an architect nominee on the panel as such. We don't, that's not the criteria that we use for selecting committee
Okay.
members, right? So we don't call it a panel.
Yeah.
It may be somebody threw that name out.
Okay, that's fine.
But
Yeah.
we're a committee.
Yeah.
But there's a critical issue here, and that is, as was said, we have design guidelines for Snug Cove
Yes.
that were written some time ago.
Yes.
And the idea of it is kind of to lock it in time, to give a consistency and a look because it is a tourist zone. Right? And the desire to do that, and of late, with the change in the population of Bowen Island, basically, there are some among us who would like to see those design guidelines modified or thrown out to let Bowen Island be built out to the best of architectural standards and the current design standards and so on and so forth. So you kind of get into this discussion in this room quite frequently about are we sticking to those design guidelines as is our mandate, or are we trying to kind of skirt the mandate a bit to do something that the general consensus of the room is might be a little bit better in this case, right? And that has, the rubber has to hit the road on that one at some point pretty soon.
May I suggest that, we side point that to
Yeah, but I
potentially
just-
further research in another
Yeah,
discussion?
but I am kind of doing that as a bit of a
Yeah,
introduction to new people on the
yeah.
panel as well.
Yeah, that's fine.
I would also recommend that if we're doing that, we look into the ABC as well, those meetings. Let's just confirm
Oh, I know, it's a whole,
requirements around the
it's like,
ABC.
it's the reason that box hasn't been opened, right?
Yeah, yeah, but it's a good point, Gary.
Yeah.
And we should make sure that something doesn't haunt anyone,
Yeah, I was clear that
Sometime in
I'm
the future.
a member at large. I was not a nominee from AIBC.
right?
Right.
I'll take it up with our administration there as to registered architect or not attending a design panel. And that's all
Yeah.
I'm obliged to do. So I
Yeah,
can't shut down your meeting and I don't intend to. If I were a
You do
nominee,
have
I would.
starving.
You at least could.
If I were a nominee, typically there are two architect nominees on the design panel, and both would decline to participate because there would not be a registered architect here. So the bylaws require it. Yeah. So, and it does happen in other municipalities.
Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. In bigger
And
cities.
I'm also on the investigations committee there, and we also investigate architects who fail to appear for their design panels. So I have intimate knowledge of it.
The irony.
Yeah.
So moving on,
yes,
I think.
carry on.
Welcome, everyone. Approval of the agenda, I think. Did we do that online essentially? Or,
Nope, just,
No.
you just say if anybody needs to add anything now,
Yeah.
or if you like, what, that's not what I agreed.
yeah. So everyone's seen the agenda and feels comfortable moving forward with it?
I move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
There we go.
All in favor? Great. And 2, adoption of the minutes. Been through them, people are familiar?
Yeah.
Great. And I know Dave Riddell said,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, chair signed up.
Move to accept
Yeah, I'll move to accept the minutes.
And all in favor? Second? Sorry.
Sorry. All in favor?
All in favor? And the public comments.
You wanna get off your chest?
Good back there. So no public comments, we can move on to new business. 4.1, development permit amendment application, loan investments. Daniel Martin. Daniel, you're gonna give a presentation of that, or?
I just have a brief
Yeah.
presentation. So the report is there, just goes through. So the pub is currently under development and has an existing development permit. But during construction, obviously the plans of construction have changed, and so they've submitted a revised set of permit drawings, some of which reflect what's already actually been built. And so I highlighted some of the proposed changes just in this amendment section, to kind of go through a quick thing on it. And then basically what I've got as a presentation is just before and after drawings, because I know that the pictures in the report, are quite small. I'm trying to do and then the larger set are here as well for you to look at in the 11 by 17 size. But just, yeah, really briefly, obviously the pub is at the corner, and you would have passed it on your way here, most likely. And I'll go through the set of, original drawings to revised drawings, just to sort of highlight. So from the trunk road, this was what was originally proposed, and then what we see is the change. So most significantly, it's sort of the removal of the 3 chimney features. So you'll see that consistently as we go through the different sides, right? The 3 pieces. Change in siding. So originally, this was all cedar siding, and now we see sort of a mix of siding. I don't have it right in front of me, but a mixture of party board and cedar shingles, as well as some of the windows have been changed. So that's what I'm seeing here. I think down here it's changed a bit. Some of the windows throughout have changed. So when we go, same with on Dorman Road when you look, so the original, again, you see the sort of the chimney features to match the ready have disappeared. This roof line has altered as well. Yeah, so it's altered here, as well as again the siding changed from being straight shingles to being a mix of siding material. Same with when we go on the south side, so again we'll see these chimney features disappear. We'll see some change in the doors over here, and a new door come in right here. So new door here, the chimney features are removed. Changes in siding. I think there's mechanical stuff on this roof here. And in the east elevations,
Is there some screening for the mechanical equipment on the roof there?
that's not shown on these drawings. Yeah, so I don't think at this point that's in the plan. And then the east elevation sees the smallest change, so siding continues. What you'll see is an extension of that party wall essentially out, so you won't see the balconies from the side, but that continues outwards. And then the material board PDF is in your package as well, but it just goes through the different siding that's proposed. So then I don't have much of a presentation other than that, other than any questions that people have. Or comments as well.
They're the missing chimneys because they got rid of the fireplaces? Or,
I don't know if they were ever functional, like they weren't chimneys per se, as much as as sort of just design elements to match.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Do we know what the asphalt shingles are in terms of the guarantee? How long they're gonna last? No.
No, I don't know. And I don't know, Mike, what your meeting standard is. I do want Glennis here, obviously from the pub, if he wants to come to sit, if that's appropriate for your meeting or not, because some of the questions may be.
Is it appropriate for Glenn to come join us? I think that makes.
Yeah.
You're chairing the meeting?
Yeah, okay. That would be great. Questions?
He knows some stuff.
Yeah.
I understand there's a free chair here.
Not taking it as Sorry, what was the question?
Well, I was just asking about the shingles. Glenn said they're 50-year shingles.
Oh, okay.
That was My one, I guess, concern was replacing
Yeah.
standing seam roof with shingle, and
Was it initially standing seam previously?
Yes, we kept the standing seam on some of the covered walkways or.
Yeah.
So we went to the
Yeah.
George shingles on the.
On the upper,
Yeah.
the primary
Just
roof.
for cost saving measures?
Yeah, cost saving measures, we also wanted to match what's in the village square. It's all.
asphalt shingles typically have chemical introduced in them, so they are moss resistant. So you get a better asphalt shingle these days. So that's
Yeah.
as long as they have good longevity, they don't lose all of their aggregate. They continue to look good.
Well, in a 50-year typically is a little thicker, it's a higher profile,
Yeah.
has a
Yeah.
nicer shadow.
You were asking about the mechanical screening. Do you know, Glenn, if that's going to be constructed? around
That section of roof is actually lower than the midsection, so it's not visible at all from either Dorman Road or from the trunk road side. The only place that you can actually see anything on that roof would be from the back lane.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I saw it
Because
from
the
inside
next
the
building
pub, so I
goes
was
in front of
curious.
it, right?
The next building is on the right.
Goes in front of it, so it'll be essentially in your courtyard.
Right.
You'll see it for 6 months maybe.
Yeah.
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 And what was the reason to change all the materials, and have all sorts of different materials?
For the siding,
Yeah,
what we're really trying to do is to minimize the look at the size of the building by breaking up the differing treatments on the shingles or supporting batten, the bevel siding. We're trying to make it look almost like 3 small buildings rather than a smaller building.
Mm.
That was always the case.
That was always the plan. I think in the original drawings, James showed all one type of shingle, but perhaps a different color. We then decided to change the shingle, whether
The
the
type
side
of
materials.
yeah.
As to the wall claddings and the colors, I wouldn't have noticed what the original design was, but I think it's really successful, the way it's being constructed with shingle siding and
Mhm.
hardy board, and I think it's going to look really sharp.
Mm.
Colors are great, color palette's great, yeah. Timber work, nice colors, it all works. The window pattern, again, I don't have the whole history, but when I look at it, there's a great variety of sizes and shapes, and it's very organic, and I think that's appropriate. So, I'm all for it. They're all, did you change the window system to vinyl clad from something, or was it always
Wood
that?
all along the retail spaces are all wood. We did wood for the front side, and again,
Yeah.
just because we separated out the siding as well as the colors in the upper levels on the right-hand side sections.
Yeah.
We also went with the vinyl windows with a darker trim on them, just to,
Yeah.
again, to kind of make the building a little less dominant on the corner with breaking it down into sections.
Yeah, I think it looks good.
The loss of the chimneys was probably strictly a cost related.
Strictly aesthetic, you know, in all honesty, a bit of it was cost, a bit of it was just standing back and looking at the building.
Yeah,
I didn't really think it needed those.
it had
features.
one or two too many, I
It
think.
did, yeah.
It would have been nice to
Mhm.
keep one vertical element somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a little bit tricky to make it all work.
Yeah.
It would have potentially been a bit overwhelming with all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, you know, in terms of an overall statement, in my opinion, it certainly meets the intent of the guidelines, still,
Right.
No.
definitely.
Yeah.
It's a great addition to the code.
Right.
I think the adjustments you've made, you know, are just changes. They're certainly not a step backwards.
Yeah.
The only thing that, looking down the road and picturing is that huge galvalume face, and if
Yeah.
there's a way of screening it somehow, putting something on it, or I don't know if there's a spot where you can create some planting that in 10 years starts to put some color on that.
Well, I mean, there's always options that you can look at down the road with it. I mean, there has been talks of doing some sort of artistic rendering on it. And if we can go back to that page, Daniel, just so we can all look at it. What we did do is we eliminated putting any of the siding and galvalume down in this area. And that's just board foam concrete wall that we could potentially look at doing something community-minded artwork down here. I'm not a fan of ivy or things like that on the
Yeah.
building. And in all honesty, this is not a a good approximation of the size of the building. It's not quite as much area up top
Yeah.
as it shows there. So standing back looking at it, really, what the adjustments, and I think this is this the revised one?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, that was original.
Okay,
Right.
so looking at it, you can see that the building in the original one was smaller. This is actually a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
I think. So
What's the
it's,
plan?
I actually think that you picked one of the more appropriate materials to put on there.
we didn't have a lot of choice, and it really
Yeah.
is. It's hardy board or it's metal.
Yeah, but the color's appropriate too, because it'll just blend.
Neutral, yeah.
Gray day.
We had to
yeah.
really look at our color palette of the building alongside the Lukan's building and try and figure out the color. And we realized that no color is probably the best color to go with, to make it neutral. And that's really what we decided to do
Yeah,
with that, because it is,
it's a big required wall.
it is. And looking at the options for hardy board, the hardy board would have been too heavy on the wall. It's a very heavy material, obviously, and it would have created a lot of leverage on that wall. So again, metal is definitely a different look, but I like it. I think it's a good material to go with. That's how we went with
In time, it would be nice to see if there were an opportunity to put something up against some of it.
I think we all agree on
Kind
that.
of give some depth
that.
to
I
it.
think we all agree on that, and that's, the one thing with the metal is there's always an opportunity to do something that's offset with
Yeah.
some standoffs or
Yeah.
whatnot.
Signage.
Or something.
And it'll get a little less shiny
It will.
in a year or two.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
You know what, one of those old fashioned painted signs on the wall would be nice, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It sure would be.
Owen Island Park.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Relax the sign
wouldn't- I
model.
honestly wouldn't use it for the pub. I think there's enough signage for the pub. I think it should be
Yeah.
something that would be more communicated.
Yeah, yeah.
Something. appropriate.
Sponsor the baseball team. But-
Which one?
I guess,
That's another development permit.
I think the rub here is the fact that it doesn't fit with the arts and crafts style. Right, so the whole idea of the design guidelines say, the intent is to not modernize the code. Basically, we want to stick with an arts and crafts look. And the rest of the building, I think, has been pretty true to that. That timber frame look and everything really looks quite good. But I think you can see with the massing of the, how much of that gray that you have there, and now you cover that over with just gray. The one, I think, in an arts and crafts world would hope that there was something more to break that up, particularly if you're talking about leaving the concrete at the 10 feet at the bottom or whatever that is. It strikes me as being contrary to the design guidelines that we have. Now possibly we were looking at a sample of it, but I get the feeling this is going to look like gray metal siding, better known as rural modern, you know, as opposed to arts and crafts.
Grain silo.
Yeah.
You could do breaks at floor levels or something to break down the height of it, maybe. And or a different material.
Mhm.
It is, Murray, you have good points there. It's tall and it's massive, yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's, when you're coming up the hill,
Yeah. Which is the
it does
primary-
tend to dominate the cove, right? And to dominate the cove, and I used to do interior design with people, and in town, when we did Falls Creek, we did enough steel gray to cover the world, right? I mean, everything was this sort of neutral gray with accents on top of it. When I moved to Bowen and I tried it in interiors here, just fell flat, right? I mean, there's a reason why everything's green and terracotta on this island. It's because it works, you know, compared to that sort of neutral steel gray background with accents on top. Because in the middle of November, once the rains start, it's kind of dismal here, it's dismal enough here. And that's coming around the corner of this building to the rest of it. I mean, that's going to kind of lift things up, and it's going to look really nice. But this backdrop to the whole lower cove as you come up that road, This is not really looking like the pub building, this is like the backdrop to everything else below it, right?
I think we've all seen that
But
experience.
unfortunately, one of the things that improves you talked about the arts and crafts thing there, you're not going to have this wall punctuated with openings of varying sizes or scaled things appropriately because you can't, because it's a 2-hour party wall, I imagine, or something like that. Anyway, you can't have all the openings, right?
Oh, no.
So no matter what you do, it's going to be a material and it's going to be large and it's not going to have any sort of articulation to break it down, other than
Well, it was
some
originally,
fake-a-roo stuff, right? Like,
it was approved as, there was no finish shown. The only reference that I could find at a meeting was discussing the fact that it had to be non-combustible and that the product that had been used other places in the cove successfully was hardy board. And that hardy board.
Just to
was-
show again the original one, it does say the metal siding on range consumption. So this was on the original one, so I don't want to detract from the amendment meeting, but this isn't an amendment. We're talking about the same thing.
Non-combustible material, metal siding on rain screen substrate.
So it is the same thing that was proposed in the original application, so I don't want to detract from the amendment meeting.
So that was
It's not
submitted,
amended.
that as part of the DP package that Judy had.
Now, just to potentially split hairs a little bit, it is, you are truly looking at a galvalume curving cladding, not
There is-
something like we see
yeah,
on
I
the
saw it in the
Just-
material.
No.
Just want to make sure that it's
Like not necessary?
not like what we see on the school.
In fact, I did see it as a proposed application for the new fire hall.
Right.
It was great.
Yeah, that's where I got rural modern from,
Yeah.
because that was the description used to describe what it was there. And I mean, it's not that there's something wrong with the finish. It's a matter of whether or not, in my mind, whether or not it meets the design guidelines for SNUP code. And if it doesn't meet the design guidelines for SNUP code, it's probably going to be this group that looks at amending those design guidelines to whatever we see taking Bowen Island through the next decade or whatever. So this is a fairly critical decision. Now, this was not something that I saw in the package that came forward to the design panel.
So I guess also that firewall's been pulled back about 6 feet, right where the balcony is? And then there's a different finish horizontal on the.
Well, no. The whole thing's been covered with,
Yeah.
the whole thing's been covered with
Okay.
firewall.
Okay,
Right, so the firewall has come out.
okay.
Is there a reason you took the
That
firewall
was
out
a
that
code
far?
requirement.
That far?
To extend it.
Yeah. The balconies are part of
Is
the
that
building
for-
structure.
Still there.
Yeah.
I would just say that certainly that will ultimately be the most contentious thing. I think when Wolfgang's building was built, the number of people who commented, my concrete block wall the rest of the building was fine, and that thing looks like it fell from space. And
Yeah.
what's that doing there? So that will be, I'm sure, the big comment. The rest of the building is fantastic. Its differentiation of texture and the fact that it's designed to look like 3 separate buildings. But it's multiple roof lines. I think those are all really, really fetching and completely concrete. But that, as Marie said, is not only an issue in terms of it's obviously meets the fire requirements, but it's going to be a publicly commented thing, I'm sure. People
Yeah.
will say, where did that come from? Of course, most people don't realize that, you do have restrictions on materials when you have building codes, but
Well, the proposal that was made was that have a mural put on it, that it become an art feature type of thing.
It wasn't a proposal, it was a suggestion. That was after-
Okay,
yeah,
suggestion was made
suggested.
to you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like the suggestion, I do. I don't see it being a reality though, unfortunately, because we can't just paint the brick wall and put a mural on it, because it's not a protected wall then. We need to protect it from the weather, from the elements. So we would have to put a treatment on it and then consider the art piece, which is what we're looking at now with the metal. We could still treat that with an art piece at a future date. The suggestion to do it in hardy board was taken off the table just because of the weight of the hardy board on that wall would require some re-engineering possibly. It is a heavy, heavy material. So we eliminated the hardy board, we're left with metal. That was it for us. So we can still look at it in an art piece down the road, it's just not in the budget right now. If the mural could have alleviated the need to put a treatment on the wall, then it opens up room in the budget to look at doing something like that. But to have both doesn't make sense at this point.
Given the fire resistance requirements, I think what you're planning to do, I can't imagine really doing something much better, because the Galvalume will act as a canvas for whatever you put on it,
I think so too.
in a way that there won't be
Yeah.
almost any competition between what you decide to put on there and what's behind it.
Yeah.
So it's a great backdrop. I'm almost picturing sort of, you know, something tall and slender and acting like sort of in the mass of a giant window, but it has maybe some community art in it, or
And with
Something along those
the
lines.
weightiness of the Galvalume, it actually lends itself to the application of different types of treatment. It doesn't have to be someone up there with a paintbrush. You could do some sort of vinyl sticker type material and we've all seen them, you know, old barns that have the deckling on the metal kind of thing. It could look really sharp, actually, much better than just a flat surface.
sorry, giant old Pepsi sign.
Giant old.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You could still, I mean, you could still use a metal cladding and vary up the patterns and the cladding with some stuff. Like, I mean, that's a bit
Almost
hokey in a way.
Yeah.
It's a bit fakey.
But
If it's the scale of the thing that is an issue, then there's ways to pattern it so that it doesn't, it's not so massive, at least in the bright sunlight.
it will fade.
Yeah.
It'll be shiny when it goes up, though.
I like the Galvalume, and I hear what you say about citizen critiques, but I think for everyone who's sort of, why doesn't it look like a Victorian cottage, there's somebody else who says, like, enough.
Yeah.
Let's, up the standard a little bit, and I think it's gonna look good.
Yeah.
And makes sense, it's absolutely functional, and it's very neutral. And I really think it's actually a very traditional, it's just sort of rural traditional as a material.
Well, and we have to acknowledge and appreciate that there are design guidelines that were developed with the community input. And at the same time, like corrugated metal, outboards, fishing shacks, et cetera, et cetera. It's
Exactly.
culture of heritage, right?
Yeah.
At the same time. So I'm a modern, and I'm totally into it. On the one hand, and on the other hand, we have to listen to the community input in terms of design guidelines. And then maybe there's a place where in between that,
Yeah.
just with how you pattern it or whatever, or how much, maybe it's not all galvan, I don't know.
But I
Maybe a
guess
way
in
to do
terms
that, right?
of the point of this meeting, are there any real objections to the changes that were actually in the?
I don't have any objections.
I certainly don't.
Me neither.
I commend you for it. But it would be really nice to somehow have, how you have great hope that something will happen in the future and it just doesn't. But it would be great if there were, some real commitment to putting something really unique on that space. And not so much, up above and in behind, but, the real street front scape
Yeah.
when you're driving up. Seeing something there would be really great.
I had that same, interest in doing that.
It's good for business too.
Right now, I gotta clear the plate a little bit.
Yeah,
And start
yeah.
focusing on process to get, because I believe that this would be a
Certainly.
process. This would be
Yeah.
community input. This would be local artists. This would be something that needs a lot of attention and time. It's not just something I can throw up there to appease people.
Great.
Put some, so it does need some time and thought, and I want to give it that. So.
Perfect.
It says here, delete the board form on the concrete exposed wall?
You're leaving the bare concrete on the bottom section?
Because I really like the board form.
Yeah, no, that was it. The board forms on concrete as well. What was on the,
Well, you had board form, well, it is board form concrete wall, but
Yeah.
from what I remember walking up the
Are you
street.
thinking of parking?
You're talking
oh,
about
maybe
this?
James was confused, but no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah, that's supposed to stay?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, you should definitely revise your,
Parging, yeah, looks
Just
just like that. in the
parging
summer.
just looks bad.
Any other comments on?
When's it gonna be finished?
Yeah.
Well, the original pub opened March 17th, 1987. I'd like to have the opening day on
Oh,
March 17th.
gosh.
That would be my ideal goal.
I just don't want to miss the closeout party.
Yeah, well, that might be up to the current building, not.
Yeah, right. It's looking that way, isn't it? So I guess we'll move to,
So comments before,
yeah,
do you want a resolution or?
I mean, I'd like a resolution.
Okay, so let's do one.
Yeah.
Okay,
we got,
just, you guys are in favor of the Induced Advisory Design Panel
as submitted.
supports the proposed changes that are already made. Changes.
Retroactively. Yeah.
As submitted.
Mhm.
I didn't say it's already made.
Yeah.
Can I say proposed changes?
I would say support the development permit amendment application.
Thank you. Mover?
Do we, yeah, let's
Yeah, please.
read that out now, just,
The
Start.
advisory design panel supports the development permit amendment application.
sounds very clean.
So,
Do we move to,
With comments that we've provided?
Yes, we'll have comments in the minutes.
with
If there's like
following-
specific, if the design panel has specific changes they want to see,